Welcome to Illo Talk. I am Cory Kerr. This is 100 Days of Animation, Season 1, Episode 15, which is also Day 15. Basically, I spend a minimum of 30 minutes every day trying to make some sort of progress on my animated short. I am an illustrator and I am getting into animation. And so kind of taking you guys along with me on the process. I am learning After Effects as I go. And I know Illustrator and Photoshop quite well, but I don't know anything about After Effects. Well, I know slightly more than 15 days worth of After Effects. And so you guys can learn with me. Today, I did this deal where you can kind of see what's going on the screen. I'm trying to articulate the mandibles, but I want to make sure that I get in there and I do some automated stuff or stuff that happens without keyframes. So there's these animation presets that I'm using called Wiggle. And I use Wiggle Rotation and Wiggle Shear. And I went through that kind of in detail yesterday. So I'm not going to go through it today, but you can watch me do it. And I might mention a few things or call some things out there at the end. But I wanted to talk about kind of a process thing called batching. And I think batching is really important. There's something called a task switching penalty, which for some reason is really hard for me to say quickly. But a task switching penalty is basically the amount of time that it takes you to get back on task or get back to be focused or efficient or working well after you've switched from one task to the next. And so there is this penalty, and some studies have said that it's like 18 minutes. I don't think it's necessarily 18 minutes, but it can be. And so if you imagine, if you're in a similar situation to me and you have a full-time job and a family and side projects, that your side projects needs to be really efficient time, because your life is pretty full. And that doesn't mean that it's impossible. It just means that you need to figure out ways to cut out the superfluous stuff and get rid of the things that are costing you time. And one of the things that will cost you time is to switch tasks often. And so a lot of people will think, oh, okay, well, I'm going to draw this thing from start to finish. I'm going to thumbnail it. And then I'm going to do the pencils, I'm going to do my roughs, and then I'm going to do my pencils, and then I'm going to do my value comp, and then I'm going to do my inks, and then I'm going to do my colors, and then I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do that, and then I'll have a finished illustration by the end. And I do that often. But when I'm doing a bunch of things in a row, right? Say a bunch of pages in a comic, or a bunch of illustrations, or something like that. In this case, I'm rigging up multiple things. Then I don't want to go through that process that way. And the reason I don't want to do that is because there's that task switching penalty. And so a trick that you can do is you can batch processes or things that you have to do, tasks that are similar to each other together. So for example, if you have multiple illustrations, then you advance all of those illustrations at the same time at the same stage until you get to burnout. And so if I've got to do a bunch of thumbnailing, then I'll do all of the thumbnailing. I won't start on illustration 1 and take illustration 1 all the way through to completion and then start on illustration 2, because there's a task switch going on there. And so I will try to group up or batch as many things as I possibly can that are in that same stage into that same thing, right? And so the reason that you do this is because your brain is lazy. And that's not bad. Your brain has to be lazy. What it's really trying to do is be efficient, right? And so it comes up with things like a symbol system. It comes up with things like a number of things, right? The way that you view the world is not the way the world actually is. That is your brain's simplified version of what the world really is, because it's trying to process a huge amount of information every fraction of a second. It's getting touch, smell, taste, all types of different sensations in addition to what you are seeing and what you are hearing. And it is making neural connections around all of those things. And all of that brings you back to it has to cut corners to be able to do stuff. And one of the ways that it cuts corners is it resists learning new things after you are about 8. There's little watershed moments at like 8 and 12 and 16 and on. But by the time you get into your 20s and your 30s, you don't learn as well as you did. And it's because biologically, as an animal, you have figured out what you need to figure out to survive. So why do you need to know new things? You don't. So your brain switches into this mode where learning is being resisted. And the way that it resists is this, and tell me if this has happened to you in the comments, because I'm interested, because this happens to me constantly. I will hear something or do something, right? I'll watch a tutorial video, or I'll finally figure out what it was that I was, struggling with, and I know that, right? And then you get this feeling, there's this sensation, there's this thought, there's this kind of emotional blanket that comes and soothes you and tells you, you don't need to write that down. You don't need to repeat that until it's ingrained because you understand it now, right? You get this feeling like if you're sitting in a lecture, you're listening to an audio tape, or this happens to me constantly. I see something that I've lost, and all of a sudden I'm like, now I know where that is. I don't need to move it to somewhere that makes sense. I know where it is. I saw it. It's right there. I will obviously know where that is when I need it. Or you're sitting in a lecture and somebody says something super important and you're like, yeah, I totally get that, right? And what happens an hour later? You have no idea where that thing is. You can't remember what you heard in the lecture. And it's as if that experience never happened. And it's because it was in your short-term memory and your brain gave you this, shh, everything's fine. You don't need to learn anything new. Everything's cool. Don't worry about it. I got this. And your brain is trying to soothe you into not having to check that into long-term memory. And the problem with that is your brain resists change. It resists what's called neuroplasticity. Now, neuroplasticity is a real thing. And what it means, neuro, brain, plasticity, the ability to change and mold and manipulate and something that is not solid or set in stone. And so neuroplasticity is the ability to, like putty, is mold and manipulate your brain, right? Now, in other videos, I've talked about neuroplasticity, and I talked about the cab drivers and how there's that part of your brain that maps the city, and is responsible for visual spatial recognition and your ability to navigate in your mind like a little map that you can see, and how cab drivers have that in abundance, but it grows over time as they get better at navigating the city. That part of their brain physically becomes larger, just like a muscle, right? If I use my biceps a lot, they will get big. That's just kind of how muscle works, right? But our mind works the same way. So you can manipulate the physical structure and ability of your brain through practice, right? And there's that old thing that practice makes perfect, which is not true. Practice does not make perfect. Practice makes permanent. And practice makes permanent because the old neurologists saying neurons that fire together wire together, meaning that there are grooves, there are paths, there are shortcuts that are grooved together in your mind. And your mind is lazy and it's looking for shortcuts. And so I don't have to, every time I see a stop sign, I don't have to go, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That is a red octagon with a white border and STOP. Stop. All right, that's a stop sign. All right, I have recognized that is a stop sign. Catalog that in my brain. That means something to my foot as I'm driving. I need to take my right foot, which is on the gas, and lift it up 2 inches and go over 3.5 inches and depress slowly onto the middle pedal. Right? If I had to process a stop sign like that every single time I saw a stop sign, I would kill people. I would literally just run pedestrians over, right? It takes too long to react to that. And so we come up with a symbol system, and automatically my foot and my leg knows exactly what to do when my eyes see a stop sign. I don't need to think about it. It just happens automatically. It's become autonomic because I've done that so many times that my mind just it bypasses my brain and it goes straight into my foot and it says, this is what you need to do right now. You know this game. We've done this before. There's been a groove that's been wired into my brain. It's been carved out so that I have a pathway that is very, very quick on repetitive tasks that I do. So this is what brings me to what I'm talking about here. One of the things that I would like to do more of is I would like to batch more of this. Right now, I've gone in and I've made 2 characters and I've almost completely rigged the second character. The first character is basically ready to go. The second character is almost completely rigged, but I did them both start to finish. I could have batched them. I think I'm going to batch the next 2 or 3 characters. I'm going to design them. I'm going to thumbnail them, design them, draw them, ink them, get them into the computer, get them into Illustrator, build them in Illustrator. I'm going to do all of that together because I'm trying to get this thing done. And I am 15 days into 100 days of getting this short film finished. And I have 1.5 characters done. I have upwards of a dozen different characters that I need in this film. And I've got at least 4 or 5 different sets that I've got to build from scratch. And at this rate, I'm not going to finish. And so I need to batch a lot of this. And so a lot of what you're going to see me do over the next little while might not seem like animation. It might seem like character design, set design, illustration. I'm going to be working in vector graphics. I might not even touch After Effects for over a week. And that's because I've got to become more efficient. So that's basically what I wanted to talk about. Anyway, batching and neuroplasticity. This stupid thing that you're seeing on the screen right now, holy crap, it gave me fits. Right about now, you're seeing, if I time this right, I'm going to speed this up so that you can see this. Right about now, you're seeing, I did it and it worked on the left side. These 2 little dangles, I don't know what you call those. I don't think they're mandibles. They look like antenna. But anyway, I don't know. We'll call them mandibles just because, whatever. I should really learn the real names for these things, but I will later. Anyway, these little dangly things, right? On the left side, on his right side, on our left side, it's like I got it working. You can see that there's a pivot point, there's a joint there, and that it doesn't look like a solid piece because it articulates at those joints as it sways, and it's random. I don't have to put in keyframes. It was super cool. And then I tried to do it on the right side, the same exact thing, same exact artwork, same exact process. And I don't know what the crap is going on with Adobe After Effects, but oh man, it drove me nuts. It was just weird. It was like the origin that it was wrapping around, the anchor point, was totally whacked out. And I don't know what happened here. So I got on Twitter. I asked some people. Robin jumped on, helped me out. Anyway, I couldn't figure it out. And then I thought, I bet you there's a better way to do this. And so I went to the help menu and I started searching for things that might mirror or reflect or whatever. Like I was looking for some sort of thing. Like I'm going to have them be exactly the same, and so they can match each other. Anyway, so what happened is, at the end of all this, I found this thing under Effect. I can't remember what it is, Distort or whatever. I'll look. Anyway, it'll be on the screen at some point. And it mirrors exactly what's going on the left side. And so I selected the composition, the pre-comp that is the inside and the outside that I called Big and Little Ant on the left, and I mirrored them, and now they work perfectly, which is super cool. I'm pretty excited about it. I'm pretty excited that worked. And so I've got the wiggly little mouth deal going on. I'm trying to make that as creepy as possible. I might add a little drool or something. And then I've got the kind of articulated, kind of undulating deals on the side of his face. And so he's looking pretty good. I'm pretty excited about it. So anyway, that is day 15. And if you are enjoying what's going on and liking what you're seeing here, then I would really appreciate it if you stuck around. So subscribe and follow me on Twitter at Cory Kerr. Follow me on Instagram at Cory and then the letter R and then Kerr. And that's CORYRKERR. And you can find all of that at CoryKerr.com, CoryKerr.com. My name's on the screen. Anyway, I appreciate you guys watching. Hit me up on Twitter. hit me up on Instagram, subscribe here, and we'll catch you guys tomorrow, day 16. This is Illo Talk. I am Cory Kerr, and this is day 15 of 100 days of animation.